Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 11 of ZK Live. My name is Kenney. I own ZK Painting. Very excited to have Jack Andrews on tonight. This is a special time in a special place. These are like our little mini fireside chats. I'm at my house right now. The only difference is there's no fire here, and I'm not a president. What's up, buddy?
Almost started like a Saturday Night Live intro right there.
I couldn't keep a straight face. That's one of those things where you shouldn't tell the joke to your wife before you start because it's harder to sell it later.
Yeah, yep.
I had to ask her what president did the fireside chats, which was a bit embarrassing, but yeah. And our fireplace has been plastered over, so we don't have one.
I don't even have one, so oh well. Oh well.
How are you?
So, all right. I mean, looks like we might have a serious thunderstorm, so hopefully if you see what looks like fireworks, it's not because I live in the ghetto or something serious is going on outside.
What are you drinking?
I have a little leftover. It's a beer called Beer for Tacos.
Wow.
It's a sour ale. It's pretty good. Oh, there, buddy.
I have a watermelon LaCroix. For all you guys
Yeah,
wondering.
I've got like a water version, but it's got Splenda in it, I think. So it has like that funny aftertaste.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I can't handle that.
Yeah, it's a little rough. So, yeah. Well, thanks for having me. Glad to be on.
Yeah, I'm glad you could make it. We moved mountains for you, Jack. Let me tell you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
I had to
a great
move
feat of
the
faith.
desk from my office into my living room, despite some people thinking I was nuts. But we're here, and we're comfortable, and we're going to talk about painting, all things painting, which is really exciting. Where in the world are you, first of all, so people can know where you're at?
Like right now, like physically? Yeah, no, I'm at home. I'm at home. I'm trying to keep my cat from entering the screen.
Where's home?
And Wheaton. It's a city right outside Chicago. It's like a suburb. Just go a little bit west, essentially, straight west. Maybe like 40 minutes. So kind of just small town, quiet town. It's a town I met my wife in, so we just never left, essentially.
So you service the Chicago area, the Chicago market.
Yep. I like the western suburbs, but I go to the north side. I go downtown, kind of go where the work is.
What kind of work do you do?
Mostly interiors. I just don't get calls for exteriors. Sometimes I'll do like a front door or maybe a front porch, but for the most part, that's all I do outside. And then inside, I mean, normally people want me to do either their trim or their cabinets or something that's maybe a little higher end. So it might be a designer paint. I do some gloss work. Let me close my window here. I do walls sometimes, but usually people are bringing me in to do something that they think a normal painter probably wouldn't be able to pull off.
Yeah, or hasn't
so
pulled
far
off already. The painter has attempted the gloss job, and no one's happy, and you get the phone call.
Yep, I've walked into that a couple times. Sometimes I'm like the third or fourth guy to come in to try to do it.
They're like, man, we actually have to pay those prices? That's what it actually costs?
Yeah. That sometimes people, they're a little disappointed when they hear the true price. A lot of times they get like a real low number. I think I looked at a gloss ceiling in the city, and the guy charged like $1,000 to do a ceiling that was like 20, it was almost 20 by 20. And he just like rolled the gloss on with a roller. And then like you walk in and you're like, yeah, it's going to be, thousands. And they're just like, what? And it's like, well, yeah, that's what it costs. Like if that's what you want. Um, so yeah, that sticker sticker shock's not uncommon.
So, so to be clear, when we're talking about gloss work, hopefully many people do follow you. They follow me. They know what we're talking about. But for people who don't, when we're talking about gloss work, we're not talking about changing the gallon of paint, the sheen in the gallon of paint on your wall paint to gloss and applying it the way you would apply wall paint.
Right.
It's a bit different.
Yeah, I would say primarily there's going to be an incredible amount of prep work that's involved to get that results. That's going to be like 90% of the project, and then the product is like less than 10%. You just need something that's shiny enough to take advantage of all the prep work that you've put in. I would say for gloss, like we're talking like a brush application or a spray application, but I just don't see how a roller would ever look good, or at least if you're going for any kind of like mirror type look or any kind of wet look. I just don't see anybody pulling that off with a roller, but maybe there's someone who can.
Yeah, that gloss off a roller is more of that commercial look of like
Yeah,
polished, like the sheen inconsistencies on every roller. You can see every roller mark, but they put gloss on because they heard because it's more washable.
yeah,
That's the gloss on a roller I think of, and it's not pretty.
yeah. No, it's not. It doesn't look good. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Um, so we generally are estimating gloss on a square foot basis. Is that how you do it as well?
Yeah, I tend to give a square footage price, and I vary it a little bit. I think the more surface area you have, you can come down square footage price a little bit. But the smaller it is, I mean, for the amount of work it is, it's like that square footage price has to be much higher. But like I wouldn't do anything less than like if we're talking like a wall or a ceiling, like my absolute minimum would be 40 a square foot, but I'm probably going to be pushing between 50 and 60
Yeah,
is what I try to go for. And that means I lose a lot of work. But it takes so much that it's got to be worth it.
yeah. So
It's
like
got to
a
be worth it.
powder room, which is not a lot of square footage, you're in the 60 plus range per square foot of wall space, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You're looking at like 8 to 12,000 probably, unless it's like unless there's something. I mean, if it's like a tiny closet, maybe that's different. Or if your powder room is like the size of somebody's dining room, I mean, maybe maybe it's something
You
different.
should just put a shower in there and not call it a powder room if it's the size of a dining
Right.
room. But
Yeah.
yes, and so generally, I like that when people ask, an $8,000 to $12,000 to paint your bathroom is not a crazy number when you're asking for a mirror finish on all surfaces.
No, I always give the analogy of like, what does it cost to paint your car? Right? Like, so let's say you're driving and you're at a stop sign and somebody like, they're looking at their cell phone or something and they hit your bumper and it's got to get repainted. And a bumper is what, maybe 10 square feet? Like maybe. And like you're going to get charged like a minimum of 1,500, but like that could go upwards to 3,000 probably. And that's just for a bumper. And that's a surface that's, for all intents and purposes, manufactured to be smooth and prepped to start with. And it's being done like in a spray booth probably, and like you're talking about like, well, wait a second, like we've got a surface that's not ready to go. It's very rough, it's textured. There is no spray booth. We have to mask it all. We have to try to do all that dust control on site has to be created, and almost every job site's different. So you have to come up with a new game plan. No, it's a lot of work.
It is.
It's a lot of work, but it's not arbitrary. I mean, other industries charge quite. I mean, 1,500 for a bumper's pretty high. I don't think I'm that expensive. I mean,
Yeah, and it's arguably much harder to make a room look like a car than it is to make a car look like a car,
yeah,
as far as that
I,
paint
I,
job. Yeah,
I
that's
would
a
think
great
so. Yeah,
analogy.
yeah, yeah. I mean, go ask Dan, right? Dan's your spray guy. He's got an
Yeah,
automotive training.
yeah.
Like, yeah.
Um, that's awesome. So let's start at the beginning. How did you get into painting, or what's your background in
Um,
general as it leads to painting?
well, I I painted to pay my way through school, and that's how I got my foot in the trade. And I'm from Seattle, or right outside Seattle, in Washington State originally, and had gotten into my undergrad program, but I had a year off in between high school and actually going off to go study. And I was like, well, I got to do something. And I tried a job doing foundations for a while, and it was awful. Like I'd get like a call every morning, like if there was actually work or not. And like like one of the guys I worked with was like a convict, and he was talking about how he'd like throw puppies in a bag in the river, and just like I want nothing to do with this. Um, so there's a painting job opened up. I knew somebody in for the better part of a year. I worked for a higher end company out in Seattle. I don't know if I don't know if he's still around or not. It's called Bjornson Painting. It was for a guy who's originally from Iceland, a guy named Einar. And I would say that was probably pretty formative for me, to get a start that way. So we were working in some higher income neighborhoods in Seattle a lot. Like we had this massive project in Capitol Hill. It was a condo that's like the size of most people's houses, if not bigger. And we were doing everything we could to make the trim perfect. So I mean, I remember he'd show up and he'd take guide coat and he'd just like coat all the trim with it, and he's like, "Happy sanding," and it just just hours of sanding. But for the most part, you learn how to do things right, and your sense of what looks good, or at least in my case, was established with this is what good looks like. And I think that really kind of stuck with me. So I did that for about a year. And I kind of work on and off through college. Then I went to grad school and had another year off. So I worked for a company called Queen Anne Painting in Seattle, and they've been around a long time. They're pretty well established, and not quite as high end, but I mean they weren't low end. Lots and lots of exteriors. Um, uh, Got my first taste of lead renovation with them, and going through all the crazy rules. And they did it all right. They did it by the book. And was there for about a year, and then off and on through grad school. So I came out to Wheaton, went to Wheaton College, met my wife, and I had finished, and she said at that time we were dating, so she's going to stay in the neighborhood. And it's like, well, if you're going to stay in Wheaton, I think I will too. And so we eventually got married, and I could never find a job in what I studied, so I was just painting to kind of pass the time, working for a company. Worked for a company called Precision Painting and Decorating, and just kind of started off as a painter, but it eventually became a project manager for them, and would oversee multiple jobs, insides, outsides, bunch of stuff like that. And then I kind of got to a point where I think that initial experience with Bjornson painting kind of won out, because I figured if I'm going to do work, I want to do work that's that caliber or that level, something that I can walk away thinking like that's not just good enough. Like I feel better about this. I feel more of a sense of pride for doing it. So I left and eventually kind of stumbled into doing it on my own full time.
Now, while you were studying for your master's, you were getting your master's in painting, correct? House painting. That was the master's
Yeah,
program?
I wish. Yeah, I wish. No, it's a fancy term called biblical exegesis. It's a Greek term, but it's essentially a lot of Greek and Hebrew and we would literally like translate books of the Bible. So it's super academic and real life application in terms of employment, real low. My wife studied archaeology, so we always joke like it's like, well, you can get a job at White Castle, but I could get one at McDonald's, with degrees like that. Um, yeah.
But I mean, I would say that you're probably, if not one of the most academic paint contractors that I know. The way that you approach this is very academic. You do your homework, you study what you're doing, you know what you're doing at a deep level. Can you tell us a little bit about how that?
I feel that way till I talk to Robert Chicky. I mean, there's people out there who make me feel like a novice. But there's I came from a really strong research background, I think. So like I'm used to being like, okay, let's read about this. Let's see what's out there. What is there that I can know about this? How do I understand this product a little bit better? Like that probably comes from maybe the time spent with my nose in books.
Yeah, so you were comfortable, and not just comfortable. You'd flex that muscle quite a bit. So
yeah,
it was natural almost to, if I'm going to paint, I'm going to do this. I had a similar experience, like going through college painting. I don't know, it was probably ego or just like whatever, wanting to excel. I always wanted to like do higher quality work. If nothing else than to like tell people like I'm a painter, but I work on high-end jobs. Like I was so insecure back then.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. And I think that I can relate to that a lot of like, I didn't want to just do repetitive, mindless, like no one caring about the quality type of work. Which is probably why we ended up here.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I think that first job was formative. Looks like I'm staring at your sofa there, Zach.
Oh, I pushed the wrong button.
It's a nice sofa. It's really nice.
It's a massively comfortable, amazing sofa. I love it.
It looks supple and plush.
It is.
Yeah,
it's a twin bed when people stay over.
Yeah. No, I think that first job was formative. Like it kind of got me thinking like this is what painting should be. And then like whenever I was in a situation where I wasn't quite doing that level of work, then I just think I was just trained to see it a little bit differently. I mean, there's definitely times like I remember working for companies where it's like this is the budget, you get in, you get it done, and like you do it, but you're like you knew like you weren't doing as best as you could. It was like, well, I mean, we missed a couple nail pops, but it doesn't matter because that's what it was bid for. And it's kind of at the end of the day, it's kind of hard. It's just hard to like care. If that's at least in my case what I was doing. I just kind of got a little disillusioned with that level of paint work, and it doesn't strike me as like craftsmanship either. Like a lot of times I think people were just hiring us because they didn't want to do the painting themselves. So they're like, well, we could do it, or we'll just have them do it for us. And there was no sense of like, there's no sense of like honor or prestige with bringing a painter in. Like a lot of people wouldn't necessarily say like, hey, like a painter's someone who's like mastered their trade, who's skillful, and we have no chance of replicating what they did. I just felt like I was in a position where they're like, well, we could probably do it just as good as you. We just don't feel like it. And like, I hated being in that position. Yeah, I didn't like that.
Yeah, I think the idea of being commoditized is something that I also have really not enjoyed. Just not being respected, and I think about it a lot. And you talk to other people that don't have the Chicago market and the Boston market, and it's not everyone gets to do the level of work that we get to do, but that doesn't mean that you're not craftsmen. but taking
Yeah.
the parameters that a client lays out and using your brain and your skill set and your experience to execute at a high level, whether that be a beautiful finish, a perfect finish, or a very efficient finish with a great customer service experience. Those
Yeah.
two are both craftsmanship. There's another thing over there where it's like, well, I'm just here because I'm just here and I don't really care so much. That's really the problem that I saw when I was coming up with a few companies, was just like there was no reverence for the craft, whether the craft be high end or production.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say that's true. I'd say I could mirror that. I've worked with a lot of companies where the people who were of that mindset got kind of burned out, and they kind of had left. It's not every company. Like you talk to Chris, like those guys are all amazing. So, but I have a little bit of pushback because I have a really good friend, Idaho Fine Finishes. He's out in Idaho, and he ended up using Fine Paint's Eco on some columns outside for the first time, and like you wouldn't say Idaho is like a super high-end market or a metropolis. I think he was telling me like his customer is so happy that he wants to do the whole house, all of it, like everything in fine paints. And so I just wonder if, maybe people just don't know what good looks like. There might be a little more room, not every case, but if he could pull it off in Idaho,
I
might
think
be
you're
a little bit.
100% right. Is there room for clients to perceive painting and attach more value to it? Absolutely. As the trade generally, have we set a really low bar? I think we have.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had that where I walk in with like, not everybody. I want to be careful not to make like a generalization that would like throw the people under the bus, but like, I have been in situations where I've had general contractors, or sometimes designers, and they'll try to manage the budget with the customer, and I've seen them be like, oh, no, this is fine. And I'm sure they have their own pressures and stuff like that, but, I've walked into situations where what I would say is a C is presented as an A, and it's just to make somebody happy and to get the job done. Like I think that happens sometimes too, and plays a part in the overall idea of what people's expectations are.
Yeah, and on us. That's why this stuff is great, to take pride in what we do, and when you take pride in what you do, you're continually trying to get better. And it's one thing to we talk a lot about how to get better at painting, but we also talk about how to get better at serving the customer in general. And that's kind of the piece that I think that the general painter doesn't think enough about. How does this customer feel about me and about this experience from start to finish? We can get too focused on the paint job and not how did I present myself? How does somebody feel about me being in their home or my team being in their home?
Yes. Yeah. That's important.
And
that's huge.
There's some study somewhere that I read some book where they talked about like they take some guy and they put him in a lime green suit with a beard, and he interviews people. He gets interviewed by people, and then they shave his beard and they put him in a navy blue suit, and he gets interviewed by people, and he's perceived completely differently just based off the fact of what he looked like.
Yeah.
Which I believe in. Like, I think so I can't fight human nature. I think that's a human nature thing. So paying attention to how we look and it will determine how we're perceived. Oh,
for sure. Yeah. I wear.
Yeah. Talk about that.
Like, no, I wear a long sleeve white like dress shirt and it's not a dress shirt. It's technically a fishing shirt, like a catch shirt. But I mean, it's long sleeve. It's got a collar. It's buttoned down, and then I have on the shoulders like any kind of branding, like embroidered, and like like that's the basic uniform. That's the work shirt, and I think people perceive you a lot differently. I still have like the trade color white, but that looks totally different than some guy with just a t-shirt and a screen print. Um, and there's a sense of formality to it. And
Yeah. And again, you're talking about all things being equal. Like
yeah,
that put somebody in those two uniforms and then have them go talk to a group of people and then get the reports back. And there will be a skewed perception of the person based off of what they're wearing. And that is something I learned at a young age in middle school when I was not getting in trouble because I wore khakis and polos. I didn't get in trouble like the kids who didn't dress up nice. And I learned pretty quickly, like, oh, wow, if you dress a certain way, people perceive you a certain way, and you can get away with murder.
I think you act a certain way based on how you dress. Like, quite frankly, like I think it goes both ways. Like when you put on a suit, you walk different than if you're wearing sweatpants and a cut off t-shirt. You don't care if you get oil spilled on your sweats, but if it's your suit, you're going to be a heck of a lot more intentional about how you move, and you'll be more calculated for sure.
Yeah, it's the clothes make the man, and that's where I think like what I mean is it's like all things being equal. It does, like that guy in that study, he was the same human being. Like people aren't rational, and I think that when you look at people and hope they are all rational, you're going to be disappointed in life. So
well, and who are you marketing to? Like some of the high end stuff. Like, do you have designers? Because like I guarantee you, a designer is going to care that you look put together.
Yeah,
they like design. Like it may not be explicitly stated, but it's implicitly, like there's a reason UPS works, man. Like, the UPS uniform with like the cutoff shorts, like it works.
I've never met a designer that was not dressed well.
No, I haven't. Well, no, I did meet one once. Yeah, I met one once. She looked like she was like the sister of Sarah Connor from Terminator, and that was. Other than that, though, like they're always impeccable. Like their outfits are flawless, and like guys and girls. Like it's not any designer I've run across.
I'm glad. I like that we're talking about this because I think it's good to be reminded of it too, because I believe in it, but sometimes and every time I deal with clients ever, I'm always like I dress nice. I try to dress not necessarily to their level, but like in their ballpark, right? Because we're trying to sell them, make them feel comfortable, trust us. If I showed up covered in paint, and I'm saying, hey, pay me a bunch of money to do this really like nice thing in a really nice home. It's just, again, I take the same human being and put them in a different outfit, perceived differently. And that's where it's like, I can't change humans' perceptions. So I'm going to change me to get what I want, if you will.
Well, I mean, if no one believes us, like dress up as a clown and go to your next estimate and see how it goes.
Yeah, totally. You do to an extreme, you believe it, but then I think it's just easy sometimes to have had sold jobs where you were not dressed up very nice. We've all done that. Like that doesn't mean that was best practice. Doesn't mean that same job couldn't have been sold for 10% more had you looked the part more. I think, and then so this analogy goes, what I was kind of getting at even more was like how you present yourself on a job site. what is your when you show up to a job site to work? What does that look like?
So for me, that the professional presentation kind of encompasses a couple things. Like one is I want things to be clean, and I want things to be organized. So to me, that's important. So when I show up in a job site, I have like the Festool mobile carts, the MW1000s. Those will contain any kind of sustainer, so that every sustainer has a spot. And then that gives me like a little tiny work table. And then for the actual sundries and stuff like that, I went to IKEA and I bought like these little pretty cost-effective shop carts. Or no, they're not shop carts. They're kitchen island carts. And they have like a shelf. And as much as I can, I keep everything off the floor. And I store everything on these carts. So like, there's a sanding cart, there's a masking cart, and you can, organize it how you want. But the point is, like, there isn't crap on the floors, there isn't crap in paper boxes, and everything has a place. And if everything has a place, you can stay clean, you can be more efficient. We do our best to be quiet and as non-disruptive as possible. So like I don't allow music out loud on my job sites.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll have an apprentice or people who are coming through, and they kind of object to that. But it's like, wait a second, like, I mean, if the customers aren't listening to music, it's probably because they don't want to listen to music. And if they like music, let them choose what they want to listen to. And it cuts out a whole host of complications too. Like I've had people who think clearly inappropriate music is appropriate. And it's like, you can listen to what you want to on your headphones. I don't care. But a bunch of stuff that's blaring out loud. But I've had people who ask me back. Like I've had 2 customers who've had me back for that reason. They're like, you're quiet. You didn't bother us that much. I mean, there's the obvious job site disruption that occurs when you're painting. But I did one glass room. It was a redo, and their biggest, I mean, more than like the actual end result of the paint is they kept mentioning like how unobtrusive we were, and like, well, that's what you want. You want them to. They're not bringing you in there to be your friend, to chat with you. Like, get the work done, get out, and be quiet. If you can.
That's such a great point. That idea that these are busy people, they don't want to hear about your life. Like, they don't want to talk to you about your life. They sure don't want to hear about every employee in their individual story and all of that stuff. Like, I mean, especially when I was young working, man, I just wanted everyone to like me. And I would talk to clients ad nauseum. They were probably like, God, get that kid out of here. But yeah, we're here to serve you. You're paying for our labor, our hours. Like, we're here to make it a positive experience for you because we're at work. This is not for fun.
Yep.
So I love the idea of trying to be as intrusive as possible. And we don't have music on our job sites either. We're doing high level stuff. It's nice to no matter what, it's easier to focus. That's a great point. And so then your image of, oh wow, look at this guy. He showed up and everything is incredibly organized. And you showed up and you were organized in how you dressed. Now, by the time the paint job is done, they're not going to grill the paint job because they trust you.
Yeah, and keep it clean. I mean, I think that's big. I mean, keeping things super clean. I think that makes a difference. I mean, if you kind of treat it like it's your home, I think.
Nick just made a comment, but I think I'm just going to write all that off to Canada being a weird place.
Okay, I didn't see what his comment was.
Nick said, "Interesting. My clients have hired my guys to play music at their events and me to take their kids climbing." Um, Nick, we can all agree that you're an anomaly. You're just such amazing things in an amazing place.
Well, I mean, when you're as good looking as Nick is, you can
I
get away
know.
with stuff that other people can't.
That's so
You
true.
know, when you can look at, when people get lost in the depth of your gaze, and
Your six-pack abs. Yeah,
yeah,
that's quite an
yeah,
advantage that man has.
yeah. I don't have that going for me. I just finished drinking a beer. Like, mm-mm. Yeah.
Yeah, and also he's in Canada, and Canadians are weird. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. So, I mean, there's so many things I want to talk to you about. But we're talking about gloss work, so let's talk about gloss work for a little bit. How'd you get into gloss work? What was your first gloss job? Do you remember?
Um, I tried doing a whole brilliant job for the last the company that I worked for before I went off on my own, and that was an adventure first go around, and I brushed it pretty good, but it was flat with no air control, and there's just crap all over it, and I was like, I don't know what to do. And then I kind of saw it, so I thought it was cool. And I had some Ferrum Ball connections, and I had a customer who wanted, it was a referral through the Ferrum Ball store to do gloss in a laundry room. And then it's like, okay, if I'm gonna do this, I better figure it out. And I think I went online and you try to find everything you can. So of course, you encounter the majestic John Shearer in those purple cabinets.
Oh yeah,
Um, and I'm kind of embarrassed because he's got I don't know who the guy's name is, but it's the white guy with the goatee.
yeah, tall guy.
Yeah, I thought that was John Shearer for the longest time because he was always talking.
Yeah,
He was the one who was talking. I was like,
totally. I
this must be
probably
John
watched
Shearer.
that guy on repeats. I've watched his videos so many times.
Yeah, yeah.
That was all that was
And
out there
then
back then.
yeah, well, and then Shoreline just mass producing the gloss, and you're like, okay, that's what good looks like. If I'm gonna do this, I have to somehow pull those pictures off.
Yeah.
And that's but then once you do one, then it kind of opens up the door a little bit if you do good, if you do it well. So I did, my first go around with Holland Light Brilliant was that front door, and that was rough. Then I did a Ferrum Ball Gloss project, and that was okay. At the time, I thought it was awesome, but I come back and look at it now, and I just feel like, oh my gosh. And then I think I did a gloss project, their kitchen cabinets, and got a lot better just doing that. Talked to Adam Fox a little bit, learned a little bit from him.
Another
And
legend.
yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
I would say so. And then out in Chicago, there's something called a Lake Forest Show House. It's Lake Forest is a suburb on the north side, and every 2 years, it's usually connected with an infant welfare society. It's a charity thing, and Farron Ball would always sponsor it. So what they do is they take a house that wants to get put on the market, and they'd assign different rooms to designers. And so the designer would come in and design the room and do all this fancy stuff. And some of it's really cool because the designers go all out. So you get to see what can and can't be done. When I was there, there's a dining room, they upholstered all the walls. And that sounds kind of goofy. But when you see it in person, it's okay, no, this works. This is cool. And I didn't even know you could do that. But they had a sunroom and the designer needed a painter who could do the gloss. So I came in and did that, and I did it in Farrenball, and that's kind of how I got my digs in for the gloss work. Yeah.
I remember the first time that we talked, Fine Paints of Europe had connected us, and
Oh, yeah.
I was down the rabbit hole pretty far at that point of gloss, and I talked to a bunch of people, and like that had called and were like, "How are you doing this?"
Yeah.
And it's so crazy to me to think now that I was talking to you, like because now I know you and we're friends, but at the time I was just like,
Yeah.
I was telling you things that I tell everybody, and you were like, "Yeah, I'm doing that." Yeah, I'm doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing that. Yeah, I'm doing that. I'm like, hey man, then I don't like, I don't really have much more for you then. And you had already
Yeah.
done so much homework, and I think we're very similar that way. I definitely like to do my homework, and it's awesome to talk to guys like you because we're able to then we've done so much homework in different worlds that we can combine that knowledge and still be frustrated quite often.
Yeah. Yeah. The dust with Hallmark Brilliant can be a challenge.
Yeah,
That can
gloss
be a
is
challenge.
a very frustrating. It's probably the most frustrating painting I've ever done. Um,
Yeah, I can't think of. I don't know if I can think of anything harder.
Because
Than,
as you get better, the margin for error gets smaller. Because like I
yeah.
tell clients, like
Yeah.
you're gonna see micro dust because we're so good that you're gonna see these little micro dusts that you wouldn't see if there was any texture at all in this paint.
For sure.
So
Yeah.
it's definitely like as you get better, the standards get harder to meet.
Well,
Um,
and you learn to see, like, even if the customer doesn't, then you learn, like, okay, like, oh, before this looked good, but now I know, like, I I could do this without that being there, and now I want to do it even better.
yeah.
And then when you're always looking at Shoreline's pictures, you're always like, well, it doesn't look like that, so I still
I got to work
must be
harder.
missing. Yeah, like I'm not there yet. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I would say, like, especially him pumping those pictures out and like looking at that, you kind of like, here's what you did. You're like, okay. And like you like throw your phone up, you're like, nope, nope, not there. How did you do that?
Yeah.
Um, I guess I'll go back to the grind and figure it out.
Yeah.
Um,
Social media has been huge, I think, and is huge at and helping us to elevate the overall level of the craft.
yeah,
It's
for sure.
John Shearer is very famous for saying, "What does good look like?" Right? And
Yeah,
and I think that's where we have to start with clients, with ourselves. Like, what is good? Because it's a subjective thing. Good.
yeah, yeah. That's
Which,
true.
I love that idea because we're here to make clients happy. So,
Yep.
like, we'll tell people, okay, here's a price for an A, here's a price for a B. Like, what do you want? Like, how particular are you? On estimates, I'll walk around and, like, point stuff out. Like, how does this, without pointing too much, it's like, does this bother you over here? Oh no, I
Yeah,
never even noticed it, and I still don't care. Okay, cool. Like, now we know
yeah,
where your expectations are, so I can tailor. I'll use craftsmanship now. What we were talking about. My camera is too small. I went to do this, and no one can
yeah,
see me.
yeah,
We'll use the craftsmanship thing that we're talking about, and we'll meet your expectations. We don't, and slightly exceed them, but we don't need to give you our A if you don't care at all and don't want to spend the money.
yeah, yeah. I offer people three levels painting. Like you could maybe make it more complicated, but for the sake of being able to communicate a standard to people who have to do the work, if it's not me, um, let's be honest, it's me. But I ask people, like, I'm not gonna pretend like I have a huge company. Um, I I tell people we can do a simple repaint. In my mind, a simple repaint is I'm just changing the color. Um, That's it. Like, so I'm not doing prep work. And if something needs to be primed, like I'll prime it. Like I won't skip steps, but like I'm not going to do really almost anything. Like you might just want the walls painted because you want to sell the house and get out of there, or maybe your walls are like immaculate and majestic and you just want to change the color or refresh the color. So if that's the case, simple repaint, and that's a certain price point. Then I have what I call a standard repaint. And a standard repaint is we're going to do a good paint job. Like we're not going to skip any steps. It's going to be a long-lasting paint job, and we're going to fix damage. So I'm primarily inside, so that means like if there's a stress crack, we're going to tape it. If there's nail pops, we're going to take care of it. The caulking's failed, we'll cut it out, redo it. So we will do all the appropriate things. We won't skip steps, but where I draw the line is I will not improve the surface texture. So I'll repair but not renovate. So if your walls were rolled with a really rough stipple, like I'm not going to change that. Like, and that is just, it is what it is. Like if you start with a rough canvas, like it's going to be a rough canvas. It'll still be a beautiful painting, but we started with a rough canvas. And then I have a superior repaint, which is like, we'll take it to the nines. Like we will resurface everything and we'll apply however you want. You want it sprayed, we'll spray. You want it brushed, we'll brush it. Like if you want wavy brush marks instead of straight brush, like fine. Like we'll do whatever you want. But I think I kind of learned, especially doing like oak cabinetry, because you have like the to grain fill or not to grain fill. I just found like I can't grain fill 50% or I can't grain fill 75%. Like I don't have a mechanism by which I can tier that. So like I just say we'll do a standard repaint and you're going to see the grain. And if you don't like it, then we will make it go away 100%. But I don't know how to deliver 89%. And even if I did, how do I communicate that to whoever's helping me? Like, hey, can you grain fill this 89%? And they're going to look at you and like, what does that mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know how to do that. And usually when I explain that to customers, like I can't give you 75% like surface improvement. I can guarantee it's sound. I can guarantee that we've taken all our, the damage is repaired, no problem. But in terms of visual improvement of pre-existing textures, no, I don't know how to do that. So I settled on 3 choices, so it's not super complicated. No one wants like 10 choices, I don't think.
No.
But 3 is very simple. Most people don't even want the simple. So it's usually standard or superior for the most part.
That's been my experience too.
Yeah, and that's how I handle it. And it's like, well, we'll price it at this way. The only exception is for gloss. I don't have a standard option.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's for some people might, but I've chosen just to come in at it will be superior if you want me to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's interesting. I do the same thing. But once we do what we do with gloss, like we're doing a project
hard.
where it's a B project, and that's what the client wants. It's this big black gloss project. There's a ton of it.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm not particular. I want black gloss. I'm gonna put a bunch of art in this room, and
Yeah.
we have a budget to meet, and it's obviously significantly less money to do a B job than it is to do an A job.
Yeah.
Because we just talked about 90% of the cost being prep. Well, if you take a bunch of the prep away, that's a bunch of the money.
Yep.
But again, I think more than anything, like what we're talking about, it comes down to expectations before you start, or before you give a price even. Like very stating.
Yeah, but that's clear cut. Like you got 3 categories, and they know what they're signing up for. And I ask them, Um, and I always kind of was like, well, can I ask you a weird question? And they're like, okay. And I'm like, how nice do you want it? And like most people kind of look at me like, what do you mean? And I was like, how nice do you want it? Like, um, it's like, what am I bidding? Like, I mean, um, and that usually helps put in context, and they're able to cue it in pretty quick what I'm asking. And I found most of the time other people aren't asking that for the most part. So the question itself kind of helps you stand apart. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah,
I found that again, like the social media stuff has been huge with that too, for the
yeah,
A stuff. When,
yeah,
because I'll say generally, like in the state of Rhode Island, there's no one that can do RA. Like, I don't know of another company that can do RA.
yeah,
There's a couple companies maybe in Boston that can do RA. So if you ask me for an A, like be prepared that the price will not be compared to other people at all.
right,
We're
yeah,
talking about a completely different thing. Um, and sometimes I'm grateful for Instagram because then I can be like, okay, watch this video of me walking up to a door and following the light down the mirror reflection. Like watch
yeah,
that. It's no longer okay, it's gonna look like a piano finish. Like people just words don't sell it nearly the way visually. Um,
yeah, yeah,
do you
yep,
do that a lot? Do you send them your stuff, show them your stuff?
yeah. I do, and um, I'll incorporate that in the estimate form that I have. Like I'll put a lot more gloss pictures and stuff that I have than I have anywhere else, and like I can share like Google folders and stuff like that. So if I meet a designer for the first time, it could be like, bam, here's like a quick like a file share or something like that, and I can categorize it too. It's like this is Farrow Ball, this is fine paints, this is Ilva, these are your different options. Um, but especially with the gloss, like trying to, if you don't know anything about gloss and you're trying to like get all nuanced with a customer about the end results in proportion to prep work, like it's weird. Like, that's like me talking to a mathematician who's trying to explain like his proof. Like
Yeah.
it means nothing to me. Like it's like at a certain point I just get overwhelmed and I'm just kind of like, I believe the answer is 54. Like I got to get a 54. I'm gonna get 54, right? Like so I I just show them pictures and just say this is the end result that you're gonna get. Um, so
Do you use samples much when you sell?
um, a little bit. Um, for the gloss, if I have gloss samples, it'll be something that's pre-existing. And then um, I would say for cabinets and gloss, typically I have samples. Otherwise, not so much. Um, I have sometimes sometimes they help, and sometimes they don't. Um, I think it kind of depends on the customer. I've had I had Eurolux wall like samples from fine paints, and some people just don't even want to like test it. Like they don't care. Like they don't want to touch it. They don't want to like put ketchup on it and let it dry and wash it. I, I think I found the majority of people don't. They just kind of want you in and out.
That's what I
Um,
found as well. And I used it in the beginning. Now, like, again, I'm really grateful, but like our reputation precedes us. And
yeah,
they come to you because you have a reputation and they trust you and they're kind of describing what they want and they're leaving it up to the professional to go figure out. Um,
yep,
which is odd. Like that's the dream. And, it's not easy to get there. Um, but you've developed a reputation that does precede you, and
yeah,
it helps. Like they, just like what I've done, I think you've done the same thing where people know. Call them when you want it right and you have the budget. Don't call
yeah.
them
Or
otherwise.
I mean, the sample doesn't quite equal the referral. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
they're like, well, I trust this person. They said you could do it. I sell more. I sell more through that more than having like a perfect sample on site.
How often would you say that you are going up against other numbers, that people are getting other numbers and you're bidding and competing on price?
Um, I mean, I see other numbers a lot. Typically, I mean, I for the gloss, I'm always more expensive. Um, I've, I've had a lot of customers and they show me the quotes. So I think I'm like twice the price of anybody that I'm bidding against these days. Um, or I'm doing an interior now, and I mean, the customer wanted a really good job, and he wanted to use Holland Wax satin. And I was like, well, like we can do that, but we're hand brushing Holland Wax satin. Like it's going to be more expensive to do it this route. So I gave him options. Um, and he ended up showing me like four other quotes. Like he just gave them to me. Like I was looking through them, and I mean, it's more expensive, but I found there are certain projects that people are willing to pay for. So it's not uncommon for someone to pay me to do the cabinets and trim, and they'll hire somebody else to do the walls. And at first, I was like, I'm a painter too. Like I can do that. And then I eventually just kind of got over it. It's like, all right, they're doing what suits them the best. And if they want to pay somebody to paint the walls with Promar 200, then that's what they want. So that's the best way for them, to serve them, and just don't get upset. Just be happy I did the cabinets.
Yeah, I love that. There is that weird feeling where you're like, but I could do it too. Like,
Yep. Yep.
like I'll tell people like, yeah, I want to come in and just do the entry hall, the dining room, the living room, whatever, your cabinets. But it's still like when they hire the other guy, you're like, but I like it's so, because anytime we do it, like, oh my God, this is so easy. Why am I not rolling walls more? Like the stress is gone. Like this is just a breeze.
Yeah.
Where's this been all my life? But then the caveat to that is like it's incredibly competitive market. You're a commodity at that point if you're just trying to roll walls.
It's a bloodthirsty market. I mean, like what people are bidding. I mean, like I don't know how you'd make money. Yeah, I mean, but I'll never forget. Like I had one customer. I had just finished the cabinets, and she's having somebody else come in to paint the walls, and I was like, "Well, I paint walls too." She just looked at me and she's like, "It's just the walls." Yeah. He's just so matter of factly, and I was like, "Okay." I mean,
which is like that's what we want, right? We say we want to be perceived as these like craftsmen.
Yeah.
And then when we get like treated like treated like that, it hurts. Hey, there's 15 seconds left. I'm gonna end this and start it right back up.
Okay.
So we'll start back right where we left off.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
Yep.